ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa giving ANC councillors marching orders as they, of course, formally prepare for their election, local government election campaign. Lots and lots of issues that he was raising there. And listening in to the ANC President's address, it was, of course, political analyst Musa Mdunge, who joins us now for some analysis. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Mdunge. Thank you very much for your time. Did you get a sense from the President that, as he was saying, great things are about to happen?
Well, good afternoon to you, sir, and to the viewers. Certainly, you know, this particular address by the President has been marked perhaps by one difference. It seemingly looks like an address where the President is commanding ANC to deal with its reckoning, both in terms of how it has performed as a party, but also in terms of government, particularly when it comes to local government. I hear the President is calling the ANC and by extension the state to action in terms of how it resolves some of the challenges that the country is faced, particularly when it comes to service delivery, which, you know, whether we like it or not, fundamentally, if South Africa doesn't fix this particular issue of service delivery, it will undermine any objective for the South African economy to be competitive, particularly here in the time that we are in, where there are so many global uncertainties, especially when it comes to trade.
But everything, virtually everything that the President said or the problems he pointed out are actually well documented. Successive Auditor General reports have raised these problems, where the challenges are, who is responsible for the wrongdoing. So it's nothing really new. Could he not have adopted perhaps a different approach that says, we've known these problems for many years, but this is what we have, or these are the things we've done to actually sort these problems out, instead of saying, we know the syndicates, we're going to go for them. We know the people who are not performing, we're going to go for them. Would it not have been a better approach had he said, we've demonstrated in case A, B, C, and D that we are serious about this?
Certainly, the President could have taken that approach, you know, particularly when it regards to the issues around crime. We know that that is a hot button issue at the moment, and he could have done more to put South Africans within his confidence, to not just simply point out on where government has failed, but what are the active interventions that are in place and the asset test by which you and I, as South African citizens, will be able to measure the state in terms of its performance. And perhaps maybe that's the one element of his address today that perhaps is good, is that in looking at the issue around, checking whether work is being done, the performance of councillors is actually happening, you know, and the issue must not only be about whether they report to the state, but also what are the mechanisms within the state to sort out those kind of performance indicators, so that we're able, you know, a year later, you know, when the President addresses us again, to be able to say, Mr. President, this is what you said your party and by extension the government would do. This is how you performed. And by this virtue, we then vote to keep you in or take you out. And I think it's as simple as that. But the problem is we've got to get to a point of action. That has been South Africa's stumbling block. People keep hammering this point here, Vuyo, of South Africa has the best policies. But by what asset test do you test that by, if it is not by the execution of those policies? So perhaps we need to get over our love affair for this so-called branding of the best policies when we, in actual fact, haven't implemented.
He asks a pertinent question that I think he probably should have answered himself, because I'm sure he knows the answer to the question. The question of what it is that the Democratic Alliance is doing, that which ANC councillors don't do. When you look at Auditor General reports, the municipalities that are doing better than others are those that are run by the Democratic Alliance.
Yes, certainly. And it is an argument, therefore, that the Democratic Alliance can, of course, hound in next year's election. It is the reason, for example, that we are seeing the resurrection of Helen Zille as a possible mayor of Johannesburg. And even, that within itself is a problem. When we need to start resuscitating and repeating leaders, it then raises questions about whether, as a country, are we producing the right stock of leaders? Are we producing a new generation that is going to be able to take up issues not only on a local government level, but as well as provincial and national government to ensure that the South African economy is competitive? So it is an indictment that the ANC has not done this, but we've known that they have not done this. Kudos to them for finally getting to the realization of this point. But of course, everything is going to be in the action. Will we, a year later, you and I, sit here, have the same conversation, or will we see active improvements? It amazes me, Vuyo, of the 4 years when I've been off in the UK coming back, just the deterioration of the roads in the country, of services in the country, and there's just a lack of direction. And if South Africa is going to be competitive, because guess what? It's not just South Africa that's in Washington trying to get Trump to sign an agreement with us. It's 190 other countries in the world. What makes South Africa special? What makes South Africa that economy that is critical even to Washington in this time? That is the question that South Africa has got to answer.
Even though, as you say, we've known this, but politically, is he not committing a bit of suicide, if you like? In other words, is he not giving the DA something to beat the ANC with in the run-up to the local government election? Was it wise to say it in the manner that he said it?
Well, look, certainly he is giving the Democratic Alliance ammunition. And it is interesting that, if you think about the Democratic Alliance's own elective conference, which will happen next year, before that of the ANC, it gives them a time to mount a response to what type of African National Congress are we going to get, not only in terms of the local government elections, but as well as 2027. So certainly for the Democratic Alliance, this is a moment if they will seize it. And that's the question, do they actually seize it? But at the same time, he has nothing to lose here. This is not a president who's going to come back for a third term. His time is done. The most that he'll be looking towards is ensuring that the successor who follows him in the ANC is somebody who will be friendly both to his legacy and to him.
To what extent then, given the fact that, as you say, that he is almost gone, to what extent then is he going to be able to influence, those councillors, crack the whip, having given them his marching orders, their marching orders?
Well, it will depend on the political support for this particular moment in the ANC. If all the potential candidates of 2027 all put their support towards this particular moment, then it is likely then that this can be driven forward as a possible policy that can be implemented. But if there are perhaps divisions even in that, within those potential political successors of Ramaphosa, then of course, we're going to see those mounting divisions. And then the question, as you said, lingers, how do opposition parties then take up this moment, both the Democratic Alliance, but as well as the MK party, which is quite been silent these days and not really effective, I would say, as an official opposition at this point.
So we're going to leave it for now. Political analyst Musa Mdunge, thank you very much for your time. We'll have more news for you after this.